Hello, Facebook community and family. I just got back from a meditation retreat. Not just, but it still feels like it because I'm really getting everything that I learned more and more. It's seeping into my awareness and integrating into everyday life. And currently I'm eating my lunch, and it's delicious, avocado toast, and also a salad, very yummy. And I wanted to share some things that I learned on the retreat because, gosh, it was just mind blowing. Sitting and just being with my mind for 8 days, I think it was. Um, I noticed so many things that I knew intellectually, but I actually experienced it, right? I experienced all these realizations and all these truths that we often are told in life from different spiritual traditions, different teachers. And it was an amazing experience. So I wrote down some of the things that I learned because I think they're helpful for anybody. And I think they're just pearls of wisdom that I think could be really useful for your own life. So I'm going to do the first 5 today, and then the next 5 in the next few days. So here we go. Number one thing I learned is, and these are not like this one is more important than this one, it's just the first thing I learned that I wanted to share with you is what we bring to a situation says a lot about how we experience the situation. It's mostly what we bring to it that we get out of it, right? So I think it's super important to take yourself out of situations that you are normally in everyday life, right? We kind of get into this robotic sort of monotony of how we do things, how we are experiencing certain relationships and what we bring to certain relationships and how we experience ourselves. So when I got into the car with the 4 people that I drove up to the meditation center with, I said to myself, I'm going to bring my just joyful, authentic, passionate self, right? And we actually have that potential. We have the potential, everybody has the potential to kind of not be an actor, but actually begin to bring forth qualities that you want to bring more of that maybe in certain relationships that are so, I guess, that are so in a certain way, right? Because we've been in them for a long time. When we go into a new situation, here's an opportunity to expand who we are, that is already in us, right? And have the potential to actually learn and experience a new part of who we are, because we're always evolving, we're always changing, and aspects of ourselves are always doing that. So asking yourself, what qualities do I want to embody more of, right? Do I want to feel more joyful? Do I want to be more confident in my life? And actually put yourself in situations that are new and then practice that, right? And so that was really helpful for me because I got to really experience myself in a new, fresh way. So put yourself in new situations because it can really inspire you to bring certain aspects of yourself out that are already there. Number 2. Okay. This one was kind of insane to notice. So as I was sitting in meditation for hours, I saw that my mind was literally creating stories about people that were near me. So there was actually this man there who was lovely, and I decided, something in me, my body was like, I'm gonna have a crush on this guy. And so I did. And then I started creating this long and lengthy story about who he was, and maybe we would date, and all these things that came up. And here's the thing. We actually don't know who people are until we actually connect with them and talk to them and engage with them. So in these retreats, it's all often called like a retreat romance, right? A romance that we make up in our own minds. And I know, especially for women, I'm sure men do this as well, but a lot of my girlfriends have discussed this, where we create these stories about these men that we want to connect with that may or may not be true, and most of the time they're probably not true. So I really noticed that I created this whole story around this guy, and then actually it was two of them actually, and one of them I realized was actually gay. So great. So we couldn't have a romance for that reason, and yeah, and it was just interesting to notice how much we do that. So it's almost like it was a microcosm of what I do in my daily life, is noticing, creating stories about other people, and actually taking the view of curiosity and genuinely being interested about someone and not assuming anything until you actually connect with the person, right? I feel like we do this on Tinder profiles or OkCupid, like, oh, this is how this person is. And yes, we can get a lot just from observing someone, but also we don't know. So taking the view of curiosity and not assuming you know anything about anybody. Number 3. Ooh, this one was really good. So the concept of gentle honesty. So often we think that honesty has to come out in kind of a harsh and negative way. When we are honest with friends and partners of ours or family members, of like, this is how I feel, and this is how you're making me feel, or whatever it is, and it comes out in this sort of aggressive manner oftentimes, because oftentimes we're just actually uncomfortable with what the truth of the situation actually is. And so the concept of gentle honesty, being gentle with how we're feeling about something, gives it space to marinate and to settle, and then to just be seen. So, and of course, the first way that this happens is with ourselves, right? So there were moments of timidness and shyness that came up in the retreat as well. And I see myself as a pretty confident person, but actually just seeing the truth of, oh, I have this timid part of myself. Oh, interesting, gentle honesty. Or especially, this is when it becomes really interesting and really useful, is in relationships with other people. So when I had this experience with this lovely, amazing woman who I actually haven't told her about this yet, who is awesome, and she is super attractive and super hot and really is very dignified. And there was a night when she was performing, and she wore this like really sexy, beautiful dress. And I noticed that I was kind of intimidated by that, and and that was coming up for me a little bit, and not being completely honest that was what was coming up for me. And now, in hindsight, I'm looking at it, and that was the truth of the situation, and actually seeing the true projections that we have on other people and being honest with them. And that doesn't mean that always happens, but that's what happened in that moment, right? And acknowledging that we kind of project a lot of our stuff on other people. And just sitting with that and being with that and seeing that was the truth of the situation, and then letting it move on, right? Letting it continue. And then sometimes it's helpful to talk to the person about what you're experiencing, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not helpful. So being discerning about whether to actually share whatever experience you're having with the other person if something is coming up within that. Oh, this one was good. Okay, so people are way more connected to each other than we ever realize. On a bio level, it was amazing to see these 50 people that were together meditating for hours a day together. And we kind of became this organism, right? And sitting still in meditation, I really noticed how if one person moved on one side of the room, without even people necessarily realizing, another person on the other side of the room, maybe even like 10 feet away, was potentially affected by that. And how little subtle movements affected each other. So if little subtle movements affected the organism of the 50 people that we were in, how much do we affect each other when we're having like a big experience of joy or of happiness or of sadness and loneliness? We affect each other so much. And I think living in the big city, in New York City, we often close off to that truth of how much we are actually so connected. Because there's so many things happening all the time, right? And in a subway with 20 or 30 people, one person is having the best day of their life, and another person is having the worst day of their life, and another person is hungry, and another person just got dumped, and another person just got a job promotion, right? So seeing how affected we actually are if we open our hearts, and that's scary. So really tuning into the present moment, you can actually notice how we're actually all affecting each other. And at the same time, we're all going through such a personal experience. So finding the balance of the two is super interesting, and how I really was present in watching all that, right? And part of owning our own power is seeing how then we can sort of take a step back out of a situation and say, oh, maybe I want to be affected by this, or maybe I don't. But I'm still going to be affected by it somehow. So just noticing how affected we are. People, we're affecting each other all the time, right? I'm affecting you by how I'm speaking and you listening to this right now. Okay, 5. And this was really, really great. So we did this practice called oryoki, which is a Japanese style of eating one bowl of food and being still and silent and eating it quietly. And being in a room of 50 people, again, silently eating the meals was so beautiful and so powerful, because I was actually able to fully digest and ingest the food and notice the nuances of the flavors of the carrot and enjoy it and appreciate where everything was coming from, right? I'm eating a salad for lunch. It doesn't look like much now, but it was pretty awesome. And noticing like, oh, this tofu came from soybeans, and someone had to ferment this, and this spinach was grown in some farm, and then the sun actually created this, right? So there was so many moments of profound realizations when we can actually be present with the food that we're eating and eat slowly. So I noticed that on the days where my digestion was off were days where I wasn't paying attention to how I was eating and really noticing the textures and flavors, and just allowing the food to really affect me, right? And being in a relationship with it versus it just being something I stuff in my mouth because I need some energy. So slow down when you're eating, slow down. And use it almost as a conversation with your own body to see, ooh, like, is this enough? I'm done eating. And or do I want more? Am I actually hungry? And just noticing what's there. So those are my first 5 tips. I think that's 5. I hope that's 5. And I hope they're useful for you. If you have any questions about meditation, let me know. I'm teaching it more and more in different ways, and it's now a practice that I will never be able to live without, because it's so grounding and so it's a relationship. It's a relationship with your own mind and actually seeing what's there and learning to really take care of yourself and love yourself more. I think that's really what meditation ultimately is about. And calming down our nervous system, right? We're in a state of overstimulation so much in our culture. And that's what I really realized when I came back to the city is, holy crap, like there's so much going on all the time. So I hope this was useful. I hope this was helpful, and hope to connect with you again soon. Bye, Face Bonkers.